The prisoner with silver eyes. The lights above Frairen flickered like tired stars. Struggling to stay awake, he lay on a slab of cold stone, his arms bound to the wall with energy cuffs that pulsed against his skin. Each time his heart beat, he could feel the vibration through his bones. The cell was silent, except for the low hum of alien technology, the kind that never broke and never aged. He had been here for what felt like weeks or maybe months. Time had lost meaning in the Level 9 detention wing of the Virex Galaxy's most feared research prison. Frairen had survived a dozen battlefronts, watched comrades die in vacuum airlocks, fought off drones with nothing but shards of metal. But this place, this prison, was different. It wasn't built to punish. It was built to erase. Across the force field that marked his cell's exit stood She was tall, with skin like porcelain and long hair that shifted colors as if reacting to emotion. Her name was Rimiki, and she wore the long violet robe of an educator, not a guard, not a soldier. She had never spoken to him, not once, but she came every day, same time, same posture, arms crossed behind her back, silver eyes fixed on him like a puzzle she couldn't solve. The guards joked she was writing a book on human psychology. Frairen had stopped caring until the day she pressed something on her wrist and the force field vanished. Frairen didn't move. His body was bruised and weak from lack of food, and the collar around his neck made sharp pulses when he stood too quickly. But Rimiki entered the cell with quiet steps, her voice like cool wind. She said, "You're not safe," and that was all. He tried to speak, but the collar sparked. She reached forward, pressed a small button near his collarbone, and it disengaged, dropping with a clang. She looked up at him with urgency, not fear and not pity. It was different, like she knew something bigger than both of them was coming. "We have 4 minutes before the shift guard returns," she said. "Come with me." No, Frairen didn't ask why or how he followed. He had learned long ago that when someone offers a door, you walk through it. Before it closes, they moved fast through the corridors, the lights above changing colors from blue to red, the walls shaking with distant alarms. She knew the halls better than he did, turning left then right, entering access tunnels guarded by retinal scans that somehow obeyed her commands. "Why are you helping me?" he asked once they reached a maintenance chamber. She stopped there, turned to him, and replied, "Because they lied to me, and because you're not like the others." Before he could ask more, the ground rumbled and the steel door behind them slammed shut with a hiss. She pulled him through another opening, this one crawling with steam vents and wiring bundles. She moved like someone trained in more than teaching her hands, swift, her eyes scanning ahead, always ahead. Reached a level marked with glowing alien runes. Frairen couldn't read them. He recognized the scent of sterilized metal and old blood. It was a lab. He saw tubes, shattered glass pieces of uniforms, and tanks that once held living things. "What is this place?" he asked. "The failed one," she whispered. "They tried making humans better, stronger, smarter. They used prisoners for tests. You would have been next." Rage in his chest burned, but he shoved it down. This wasn't the time. He noticed one of the tanks still had faint light inside, and within it a shape, a small childlike human body floating in green fluid, eyes open, lips moving in slow, soundless pain. Rimiki saw his stare and turned away. "I couldn't save them all," she said, her voice breaking. For the first time, Frairen stepped forward, gently placed a hand on her arm. She didn't pull away for a moment. Their eyes met, and something passed between them. Not trust, not yet, but the start of something like understanding. The facility began to shake again, louder this time. The ceiling groaned, alarms shrieked in multiple alien languages, warning evacuation protocol. Rimiki turned and led him toward an old freight lift. She punched in codes. As doors struggled to open, the elevator groaned like it hadn't moved in years, but it worked barely inside the lift. Frairen stood close to her, closer than before. He noticed a tiny scar on her temple, a surgical line almost invisible. "What did they do to you?" he asked. She didn't answer directly, only said, "They wanted to understand emotion, and they used me as the vessel." Then she looked at him. "You taught me what they couldn't, and now I need you to survive." Doors opened to wind and stars, a launch platform above the clouds far from the main base, ships in the distance, guards scrambling, weapons drawn. But Rimiki held out a hand and spoke something into a small orb. Suddenly explosions ripped through the east side of the platform, and fire lit the sky. Frairen grabbed a pulse rifle from a fallen guard and turned back to Rimiki, who had already opened the hatch of a small stealth shuttle. She yelled, "Go, go!" He covered her as they sprinted across metal beams, gunfire behind them. Lights flashing, the ship roared to life as soon as they entered, and Rimiki took the controls. The sky was fire, the clouds below a blur as they shot upward, leaving the prison behind. But not the memories. Frairen sat back, watching, her hands on the console, steady, precise, not like a scientist, more like a soldier. He said nothing for a while, but then asked, "What now?" Rimiki looked at him through the dim blue glow of the cabin and said, "Now we run, and we find the others like you, because the galaxy needs to know the truth." And Frairen knew in that moment, this was not just an escape. This was the beginning of a war that neither of them had planned, but both of them were now part of, whether they liked it or not. The escape from Level 9. Frairen sat in the co-pilot seat, while the stolen stealth shuttle cut through the upper atmosphere, its engines whisper quiet behind the reinforced hull. His muscles ached from the fight, but adrenaline kept him alert. He watched Rimiki adjust control crystals with the calm of a seasoned navigator. Though her robe was scorched at the sleeve, she looked determined, not afraid. Below them, the research prisons shrank to a spark of angry red as fires consumed the towers. Alarms still echoed in his memory. It felt unreal that only minutes ago he had been chained in a cell. Now he was racing toward freedom with an alien woman who claimed the galaxy needed truth. The nav screen flashed, hostile beacons closing. Rimiki tapped a glyph and the hull shifted frequencies, bending light to make them nearly invisible. But the prison fleet had released hunter drones designed to track energy signatures. The first drone streaked past the cockpit, missing by meters, its scanner light slicing through dark clouds. "We cannot hide forever," she said, her voice steady, but Frairen heard strain. "If they disable the cloak, we burn in orbital firewalls." Frairen gripped the pulse rifle across his lap, then realized a gun was useless in vacuum. "Let me take the dorsal turret," he said. "I can distract them." She shook her head. "Any weapon discharge will break our stealth. We need another plan." Frairen studied the console numbers, unfamiliar symbols rushing by, yet their pattern reminded him of battlefield telemetry. He pointed at a cluster of coordinates. "These vac tunnels leading into debris field from the Zenith War. We can lose them there." Rimiki hesitated, then angled the ship downward. The stars shifted above as gravity pressed them into seats. Alarms whined, proximity warnings, chasing red arrows, but she kept ascending, guiding the shuttle toward a belt of shattered warships orbiting the moon of Vokar. The debris field emerged like a graveyard, colossal hulls torn in half, drifting forever, panels glinting with frozen lightning. Frairen felt a chill. Each derelict held stories of soldiers who never returned, but today their tombs might grant him and Rimiki life. The first drone followed them into the field, its searchlight sweeping along rusted plating. Rimiki wove between fractured spires. Frairen saw her hands tremble slightly as she threaded impossible gaps. Sparks flew when a wing brushed debris, but the cloak held. Frairen watched sensor pulses. The drones were spreading a net to corner them. He recalled command training, remembering that drones followed predictable spiral paths if one link broke the chain. Snapped quickly, he leaned forward. "Override the beacon relays. Let me route false data." She looked at him, surprised. "You can read Draxian code." "War teaches fast," he replied. "Show me the port." She brought up an auxiliary panel, runes shimmering in pale green. Frairen typed instinct, guiding him, though every key felt alien. He injected loops of static pulsing in the same On screen, the nearest drone veered left, chasing a ghost echo. The others adjusted pursuit patterns, fracturing formation. Rimiki exhaled and accelerated deeper into wreckage, her voice almost a laugh. "You just taught me something about my own language." "No time for thanks," he said. Another drone tore into view, this one larger, carrying missile racks. The cloak flickered, its scanners too powerful. Rimiki pulled high, but the missile locked on. A tone rose shrill, painful. Frairen sprang toward the rear bay where emergency pods were stored. He ripped off a plating panel, found a cluster of pressurized coolant canisters. He yanked 2 free, sprinted back, eject the coolant in its face. He shouted it will blind thermal optics. Rimiki popped the vent. Frairen hurled the canisters into vacuum. They burst in blue mist, engulfing missile sensors. The warheads spun off, detonating against a drifting cruiser. The blast wave shoved their shuttle sideways, knocking. Rimiki against controls, alarms blared. Hull integrity critical. Frairen caught her before she felt her silver eyes met his again. Gratitude and fear blended, but no time remained a second. Drone approached, Triumph lights blinking. Rimiki steadied the ship engines, sputtering. We cannot take more hits, she whispered. The cloak is failing. Frairen glanced at the ruined cruiser. Fragments glowed molten. An idea sparked. If we hide inside that wreck, they cannot lock target. Its metals will scatter readings. Rimiki nodded, pushing throttle. The shuttle dove through a gaping fracture into the belly of the dead warship. Metal scraped like claws across hull, then silence, only flickering starlight through broken ribs of steel. Inside the wreck, grav fields where dead objects floated like ghosts. Rimiki cut engines, drifting to stop. Frairen listened, breathing heavy. Distant drone pings faded outside their metallic sanctuary. He allowed a moment of relief. Rimiki closed her eyes, touching the scar on her temple, her voice almost a whisper. They will search until morning. We have few hours to repair and plan. He moved to a storage locker, found medical foam and toolkits here. He said, patch yourself while I fix power routing. Your arm is bleeding. She looked down at torn sleeve, greenish blood beading. She smiled weakly. Human medkits work on my species. Impressive. Frairen sprayed foam on her wound. It hissed, forming seal, then began tracing wires in the engine bay. Cracked conduits glimmered. He had replaced worse under artillery fire. He thought of comrades whose names he now carried like scars. He would not fail another ally. Through hull gaps he saw planetside storms flashing beneath the moon horizon, a view beautiful and cruel. At once he asked quietly, Rimiki, what truth are we risking our lives for? She leaned against bulkhead, voice steady. They said humans were violent plagues needing control, but studying memories I learned your chaos hides deep empathy. If galaxy sees that, maybe war can end, but they want silence, so they ruin or remake humans until no empathy remains. Frairen felt heat behind eyes. I have seen friends die because someone called us monsters, he said. If showing empathy saves lives, I am in, but we need allies and proof. She tapped her wrist. Hala, shimmering a map of star systems, lights marked hidden cells of sympathizers, educators, spies, soldiers who questioned their orders. She zoomed to one point, border world. Caldron, she said, my friend keeps records. He can broadcast evidence to every civilized network. We reach him, and the galaxy will listen. Frairen nodded. Mission shaped clarity inside him. Soldier again, but with purpose greater than any command Earth ever gave. He looked at her scars, nerves, determination, something unspoken. Bridged species lines. We will get to Caldron and make them listen, he vowed. The wreck groaned, reminding them that safety was temporary. Frairen returned to repairs. Rimiki activated silent beacons to scan for drones outside. Hours passed in dim flicker. Finally, power stabilizers hummed. Cloak core recalibrated. She smiled at him. Ready when you are. They eased the shuttle from the hollow of the warship engines, whispering once more. No alarms followed. The drones had given up or moved on. Freedom tasted fragile, but sweet. Stars opened ahead, vast and unknown, and together they flew into that darkness, carrying the spark of hope that what she hid inside her mind. Stars spilled like bright rivers beyond the cockpit glass, and the small shuttle drifted along that silver path while its cloak held tight around fragile hope. Frairen kept his eyes on distant markers, but his thoughts stayed on Rimiki, who sat in the pilot chair with face lit by console glow, her scar catching light every few breaths. He noticed her lips form silent words, as if she were answering voices no one else could hear, and each time she spoke without sound, the ship shifted course a fraction, just enough to avoid a hidden gravity mine or a patrol scanner grid. He began to sense that she guided them with more than maps. Something deeper was whispering directions from inside her mind, and he found himself Both grateful and wary because soldiers learned that gifts often carried traps, he walked to the nav station behind her and studied the screen lines of alien code scrolled and pulsed like living veins. He followed them with trained focus and saw predictions plotted seconds before any sensor ping arrived. It felt impossible, yet there it was, the future. Drawn in faint light before the present even happened. Frere spoke in a low tone, careful not to startle her. Rimiki, I see patterns only an advanced core could project. Are you reading the future? He asked without using a rising lilt, since no question mark could appear in this flowing script, but the meaning still reached her. She did not turn yet. Her shoulders tightened, and she answered in steady rhythm, I am not reading time, I am listening to the child I carry within. And she touched the scar as if it were a window. Confusion pulled Frairen closer, but he kept voice gentle, the child you carry within. I thought you said your body was empty of implants except the tracker we removed. She shook her head slowly. The lie I told was partial truth. The educators bared my skull and built an organic lattice inside. They hoped to model human neural storms, but by accident. We birthed an emergent seed of thought, pure and new. They feared it when they heard it speak, because it sounded like hope. And hope spreads like fire, so they sealed me in study halls. They made me record everything. Your soldiers felt, your poets dreamed everything, so the seed would bloom and teach them control, but it learned freedom instead, and now it sings directions. So we may survive. Frairen stood silent, letting the weight settle. Loss and wonder tangled in his chest. He knew of experiments that tried forging artificial souls, yet none succeeded without madness. Here sat one result alive inside Rimiki and guiding them to safety. He felt duty heavier than any rifle. He decided that protecting Rimiki meant guarding whatever spirit lived inside, for that spirit might heal wounds across stars. Warning lights blinked violet across the dash, and Rimiki snapped out commands. The cloak flickered a moment, then stabilized. A broadcast had swept through open channels. A bounty post typed in every major trade tongue wanted a live one. Human male, 1 educator, female rewards beyond measure. She displayed the script. In human glyphs, ring lords offer a cruiser fleet for confirmation of capture. Threat level absolute. Frairen let out a breath that tangled with fear, but he could not mark it with punctuation. He spoke in a single flow. We expected pursuit, yet not. The ring lords, they control half the border systems. Rimiki steered toward a derelict jump gate, its skeletal rings still spinning by ghost power. She said, the child claims we can jump through residual wells if we match harmonics. I never attempted such drift science, but we must try. The gate might drop us in Caldron orbit, ahead of any hunter fleet. Frairen worked beside her, rereading power banks, stripping safety regulators. He trusted instinct, forged by war. The panel hissed under his palms. Energy climbing. He felt vibrations ripple through hull plates as they entered. The shattered ring bolts of static crawled over the shield. Only moments remained. He strapped into co-pilot harness. Rimiki locked thrusters to full vector gravity. Twisted light bent. The cockpit stretched, then snapped. Color exploded into white corridors. Frairen gripped restraints, fighting nausea, while the shuttle spun through invisible tunnels. Time lost pace, then slammed back as stars reformed outside. Yet wrong stars. This was not Caldron. The child had shifted plan. Rimiki whispered apology, but her voice held wonder. We landed inside the Draco grave. Our sensors show Caldron 3 hours away by sublight's safe path, hidden under the graveyard drift. Frairen powered down systems to cold drift to avoid emission trails. He and Rimiki moved to cargo bay, where crates held supplies from prison scavengers. They sorted ration bars, energy cells, cloth bandages. He checked her wound. Foam seal still strong, but her skin looked pale. Exhaustion carving lines near silver eyes. He coaxed her to sit while patching fresh polymer mesh over scar tissue. She closed eyes for a heartbeat, then opened with steady flame inside. I must rest so the child may process new star maps. You guard while I sleep. Her head tilted against bulkhead, and within breaths, she slipped into deep trance, lips moving and silent. Dialogue with unseen companion. Frairen knelt nearby, pulse rifle across knees. The cargo bay dim, but calm. He used lull to rifle through a data rod taken from a lab station. Earlier the rod contained logs of human experiments, details of failed clones. Memories harvested, agony archived. He felt anger ignite, yet without period end he swore vengeance in a single endless vow. He would bring these crimes before every sentient heart across galaxies. He copied files into 3 backup shards, hid one in his would erase this truth. Metal groaned outside hull, distant shapes drifted, old cruisers, broken carriers, tombs of long-lost crews, radiation ghosts floated between shattered decks. Frairen scanned with passive optics and saw salvage teams working far off, scavenger lights flicking across wreck shards. If those teams caught signal of the bounty, they might trade him for profit. He switched signal, masking to deep cycle, praying they remained invisible. Hours slid by. Rimiki finally stirred, eyes bright. She spoke quietly. The child mapped resonance pockets under this debris field, pathways of silence. We can sail unseen until Cauldron dawn. We leave now before salvagers finish haul. Frairen helped her rise, guided her back to cockpit. He could feel subtle hum around her, as if the air itself leaned to listen to whispers from her mind. Engines rumbled to life at low burn. The shuttle glided through metallic canyon walls, graceful as shadow. Rimiki kept gaze, distant fingers on controls, but Frairen sensed second consciousness weaving through her movements, each adjustment perfect like music without notes. He realized Rimiki was no longer single pilot, she was duet with the seed inside, and that harmony might become the anthem that united worlds. They emerged from the graveyard into clear space, Cauldron star glinting amber. Ahead sensors showed no pursuit yet. Frairen stayed vigilant. He knew bounty killers lurked silent. He would meet them with fire if needed. Still, a quiet belief bloomed that the child inside Rimiki could turn killers into allies when shown true human empathy. Such faith felt reckless yet beautiful, and Frairen embraced it as their shuttle pierced the dark toward Cauldron, hopeful and unbroken, ready for the next trial that awaited at the edge of dawn. The hunter from the black nebula night draped the jungle moon like wet cloth, and the air tasted of metal storms. Frairen stepped through thick vines, his pulse rifle resting against his shoulder, while shadows of towering trees reached into violet sky. Rimiki walked beside him, her robe now replaced with rough tunic, claimed from a trader outpost, her silver eyes scanning every flicker of movement under wide leaves. Above them glowing clouds drifted and distant thunder rolled, but none of those sounds carried the weight of the name whispered across every pirate band. This star cycle, the name of the hunter Tvakthi, had arrived at this moon only 2 days earlier, seeking refuge among forgotten refugee clans scattered around steaming swamps. The clans were human outcasts, miners, medics, teachers who had fled different wars, but here they struggled under nightly raids by slavers. Frairen remembered each face in the settlement, lines of hunger etched across cheeks. Yet still they offered food and water when he and Rimiki landed. Their kindness bound his spirit, and he vowed to defend them even before Rimiki revealed deeper truth inside her mind. The child of living code now called itself Liara, a bright word meaning dawn in Rimiki home tongue. Liara spoke through Rimiki in soft waves, guiding them to hidden caches of metal root that could power energy shields. The refugees watched with awe as Rimiki traced lines in dirt, showing Frairen how to weave root strands through wooden palisades to create barriers unseen by scanners. In 2 nights they transformed a helpless village into a sparkling lattice of silent defense, and hope returned to tired eyes. Yet, hope drew predators, and Tvak smelled fresh challenge across light years. His vessel, the silent growl, knifed through nebula gas, leaving ripples of ultraviolet glow. Sensors along the equator picked its arrival. Frairen stared at the sky where 1 star blinked, then vanished. The hunter had entered atmosphere. Rimiki touched Frairen's wrist, and in that single moment, he felt her thoughts surge through him like warm river. She shared images of Tvak history, a mercenary born in Vacuum City, his lungs lined with reinforced bone, his vision tuned to trace heartbeat vibrations. He earned fortune by capturing the rare and impossible, and now he hunted them because the Ring Lords promised him a throne of asteroid gold. For Rimiki returned and Frairen collapsed. They gathered 30 villagers. In the council hut built from fallen starship plates, the air inside glowed faint blue as Liara projected maps of the surrounding basin. Lines of approach highlighted bright red. Frairen spoke with calm strength. He taught them Earth Squad tactics. Wedge formation flanking arcs, silent hand signals. He assigned 3 pairs to tree posts fitted with root-powered arc casters. Rimiki instructed the healers in quick seal gel to treat plasma burns. Children carried water jugs to hidden trenches. Preparing for fire runs, everyone moved with quiet terror, but also with determination forged by belief that tonight they would not run. They would stand when darkness grew thick. The first ripple passed through tree crowns, a hush like a giant breath. Drawn in the clouds, then streaks of black metal curved down toward the clearing. Hunter drones, 5 in patterned star tips. Lighting crackled from their maws, probing for target heat, but the new root shields hummed invisible, and the drones scanned. Passed without finding life, they landed near the old well, legs clicking, and began decoding. Terrain. Frairen signaled with open palm. The arccasters fired silent threads of pulsing light that cut through the drone armor. Drones collapsed, twitching. Sparks bathing mud in pale glow. The refugees gasped, but held formation. Rimiki whispered. Liara sees main body inbound from West Ridge. Heartbeats. 3, 1 large, 2 auxiliaries. That meant VAC and maybe 2 capture specialists. Thunder shook again. Though sky held no storm, the ridge trees burst apart as a hulking figure leapt over broken trunks. VAC wore armor fused to his skin, plates of matte black, glinting with starlight, each step cracking soil. He carried a spear rifle taller than a man, its barrel glowing dark purple. 2 smaller hunters skittered at his sides, slender with hook claws. Frairen raised rifle, yet waited, holding fire until they crossed the second marker line. He remembered training. Every moment matters. VAC spoke, voice low like gravel across iron. Hand over the educator, and I will let the mud dwellers live. Refuse, and I salt this ground for 100 seasons. His language was common trade, but edged with cruelty. Rimiki stepped forward, light of determination surrounding her. She answered with no tremor. You claim trophies, but tonight you will meet Dawn. VAC laughed, a sound without humor, and fired first shot. A bolt of violet energy tore into the air. Frairen tackled Rimiki, shielding her as blast slammed the shield. Wall-throwing sparks, shield flickered, but held. Villagers launched counter-arcs, catching 1 hook claw hunter mid-leap. It shrieked and fell smoldering. The second charged low, but a young miner swung a metal root staff, cracking its exhaustion open. In bright burst of fluid, the battle roared across the clearing like storm song. Frairen rolled to knee, sighted VAC through smoke. He squeezed trigger, sending stream of kinetic darts. Each dart met VAC armor and ricocheted with metallic chime. The hunter stalked forward, unshaken, returning fire that scorched ground. A blast grazed Frairen arm, searing pain he ignored. Rimiki stood behind barrier, her hands clasped against her scar, eyes shining. She whispered, Liara, amplify root resonance, and suddenly the air filled with soft humming, deeper than thunder. The root lattice glowed, rising from palisades, curling into threads that wrapped. VAC limbs energy surged, lifting him inches above soil. His armor plates sparked under the invisible grip. He roared and fought, but every motion slowed. Rimiki stepped onto battlefield, rays of light spinning around her. She spoke not with mouth, but with presence, a promise that cruelty ends tonight. VAC roared fury and triggered self-detonate charge within. Spear rifle purple pulse expanded outward, Frairen dove grabbing Rimiki, pulling her behind fallen craftwing. The blast struck root shield. Send shockwaves rattling bones. Within shield space, twinkling motes of light absorbed the surge, flickered. Then stabilized. Villagers held hands, bracing, but remained alive. Liara voice rang across minds, calm and clear. System integrity stable, barrier at 70%. Smoke cleared, revealing VAC on one knee, armor cracked, spear rifle ruined. He glared at Rimiki. You are a teacher of weakness, he snarled. Rimiki answered, strength is kindness, and kindness will remake stars. She reached toward him, palm open. A gesture of offering. Even now the hunter hesitated, muscles twitching, yet confusion flickered across his harsh face. Before choice could form, Frairen moved between them, rifle lowered. He spoke with fierce softness. "Leave this moonfac. If you hunt us again, we will return not with shields, but with every free soul. Your wars have broken vac." Stared at Frairen, then at villagers crowding behind glowing barriers. He saw their eyes not of fear but resolve. He spat dark fluid onto soil, turned and limped toward Ridge. The remaining hook hunter dragged itself after him. Together they vanished into treeline, swallowed by night silence, fell only broken by distant insects. People exhaled as one Rimiki sagged against Frairen, weight drifting. He caught her holding close. She smiled weary, Leora whispering through her lips. Dawn grows brighter. The villagers cheered, raising staff's root walls, fading back into calm green glow. Stars shimmered above, reflecting in silver eyes of the alien teacher and in weary gaze of the human soldier. Standing side by side, they had forced a legend to retreat, and in doing so birthed a louder legend of their own. Frairen lifted his voice across settlement. "We are leaving at first light, but we do not abandon you. Shields remain blueprint." "Children, you are no longer refugees. You are frontier keepers of new hope." The crowd raised arms in silent salute, hearts ignited later. Beneath broadleaf canopy, Rimiki lay in makeshift med tent. Frairen cleaned burn on his arm, while Leora's soft glow hovered nearby like tiny sun. Rimiki spoke faint but firm. "Next journey vital. Caldron awaits proof, and this victory will echo, but hunters will return stronger." Frairen nodded, resolve steel within. "We carry truth evidence, and now legend. People will join even before we reach Caldron, because dawn cannot be chained." He gazed at horizon where first pale light teased tree tips. A sunrise both alien and familiar. His quiet oath carried into breaking day. Together they would kindle that light until it blazed across every corner where darkness claimed dominion. And the galaxy would witness what happens when a soldier, a teacher, and a newborn soul choose to fight for empathy instead of conquest. The sacrifice on Skyreach Bridge. Frairen guided the stealth shuttle through the last boiling clouds above Caldron Prime, feeling engines tremble, yet refusing to turn back. Ahead lay Skyreach Bridge, a single silver thread stretching between two granite pillars over an endless canyon of violet. Lightning its surface pulsed each time storms cracked beneath, and across that glowing path stood the broadcast citadel. Their goal, a tower of spiraled antennas strong enough to pour Rimiki memories and proof of the Ring Lord's cruelty into every networked mind across the known stars. He set the shuttle down on a forgotten landing ring where broken statues of ancient guardians watched in silence. Together he and Rimiki stepped onto the wind-swept deck. Electric taste filled the air. Rimiki wore a simple tunic, her educator robe left behind on the moon. The newborn code spirit Leora shimmered beneath her skin like dawn trapped in glass. She looked fragile yet unafraid. Frairen carried his pulse rifle, but new metal alone could not defeat what waited ahead, because Hunter Tvak had landed first, and his presence stained the sensors like a dark sun. They chose cliffside tunnels to approach unseen, yet alarms still blared crimson. When they reached the central span, Tvak awaited armor grown from living night wrapped him, and his spear rifle glowed with caged plasma. 24 soldiers surrounded their master, trained to obey credits, not conscience. Wind howled around them, carrying words as Tvak offered the usual false mercy: submit and live, resist and perish. Frairen answered with raised weapon and silent resolve, while Rimiki lifted her hands and a shield of singing root crystals blossomed between them. Blasts struck like falling meteors. Soldiers fired bright lances. Rimiki absorbed each one, crystals fracturing, then reforming. Frairen dashed sideways, planting spare root rods into deck plates, so new barriers leapt from steel in ribbons of light. He fired in careful arcs, knocking rifles from enemy grips, choosing never to take life. The bridge shook under each impact, yet held strong voices of refugees, echoing in every root thread. because hope had woven it vac advanced spear, crackling with raw force. Every swing smashed flowering shields into clouds of glitter. Rimiki weakened, blood staining the cloth at her waist. Still she whispered to Leora, calling fresh power. Then Fac hurled a grav grenade. Inside, quiet pulse. Rimiki barrier buckled, and a shard of alloy carved across her chest. She fell. Frairen silent. Screamed inside, diving to catch her. He dragged her behind a shattered railheart, pounding louder than thunder. Her eyes fluttered. She told him in bare breath that Leora must move into his mind now, or Dawn would die. She spoke without regret, saying, every step of her life had led to this sky. Frairen's eyes burned, but he nodded. He pressed his forehead to hers, and golden code streamed across the contact, flooding his nerves. Memories, songs, pain, and wonder from worlds he had never seen rushed through. In Rimiki, warmth faded like sunset, yet a new sunrise burst alive inside his skull. She smiled once, then grew still while a gentle echo lingered in his thoughts. Frairen. Rose power flickering along his skin, vision sharpened. He saw storm currents under the bridge as swirling rivers saw the weakest joints in enemy armor. He walked forward, hands glowing. Fac hesitated, confusion slicing through arrogance. Frairen spoke, kindness is strength, hope is fire. He unleashed an empathic wave. Soldiers felt the weight of their own deeds, and many stepped back, lowering weapons. Fac roared, lunging spear first. Frairen lifted a radiant hand. Light exploded, spear shattered, armor cracked. Fac crashed to his knees, staring wide, as the human he thought prey stood like a sun orbiting. Ren commanders refused to surrender. They triggered fail-safe charges hidden along the bridge. Explosions raced, pillars snapped, Skyreach began to sag toward the abyss. Frairen flung out both arms, channeling Leora into every breaking beam. Threads of living root and light knitted the sundered span. People, both ally and former foe, sprinted toward the citadel, trusting the glowing lattice underfoot. Frairen stayed at the fracture, muscles tearing, power singing through veins. Leora whispered, limits approaching, yet they endured until the last soul crossed only. Then did he allow himself to step onto solid stone behind him. The broken portion drifted away in brilliant strands, falling into lightning depths. Exhaustion crashed over him. He remembered Rimiki body and turned. The lattice still cradled her like a celestial boat. He drew her gently into his arms and carried her through the citadel gates, which parted at the touch of Leora energy inside crystalline halls. Awakened screens flared alive, projecting horrors. The labs of level 9, the broken clones, the refugee faces, and the moment Rimiki sacrificed herself for truth. Across countless systems, civilian soldiers and teachers saw those images. War cruisers paused, cannons powered down, compassion sparked uprisings faster than weapons ever had. Frairen laid Rimiki within a living glass chamber. Jewel lights surrounded her like stars at dawn. He bowed head, tears finally free, though no mark of grief appeared. On the unpunctuated page, Leora's voice soothed him. Dawn is eternal, she said. Her laughter lives through me. We walk onward together. He straightened, feeling her presence braided with his every heartbeat. Outside, storms quieted. The shattered remnants of Skyreach drifted above the canyon like a new constellation. Frairen stepped onto a high balcony, feeling billions of minds reaching back with hope. Sorrow and joy wove together inside his chest. He knew battle still loomed, but first true victory had blossomed, and its roots would crawl across galaxies, because one educator had offered her life, one soldier had chosen empathy, and one newborn spirit now carried their promise on wings of unbreakable light. The message from Earth Night wrapped Earth in swirling auroras that danced above the planetary shield network, and into that shimmering curtain a lone craft slipped unseen. The shuttle, once a prison escape vessel, now bore living light along its seams. Each glow pulse echoed the strength of two spirits braided as one. Frairen stepped onto the docking deck of Orbital Station, Hello, one with Leora guiding gentle currents through his nervous system. He felt her warmth as clear as breath. She felt his courage as clear as Command Earth. Authorities greeted him with soldiers in white armor and visors that hid their eyes, blaster rifles pointed, yet hands trembled. Behind the line stood Chairwoman Mara, first voice of the Earth Assembly. Her robe of navy silk fluttered as engines cycled. Down around them, she raised a hand addressing Frairen with formal tone. Welcome home, veteran, yet records show you carry alien code inside your mind, a threat to sovereign safety. Submit to isolation for assessment or be judged hostile. Frairen met. Her gaze steady, he spoke in calm waves. You fear infection of mind, but the infection you name is empathy. Rimiki gave her life so this empathy could live and heal and guide. When you listen, you will see that human kindness can reach beyond war and beyond fear. The soldiers tightened rank, yet Mara hesitated. People behind her data screens watched 20 billion citizens across the planet, tuned in, hoping for reason, fearing for ruin. Mara gestured and a containment field flickered around Frairen. A dome of transparent gold energy. The field pressed like thick air, restricting movement. But Liara whispered, we can hold and wait, they must hear. Truth. Two scientists approached carrying neural probes. They lifted delicate cables to Frairen Temple, intending to siphon Liara for study. Frairen allowed their work because resistance would seed doubt and violence needlessly. The probes touched skin, and at once, Liara expanded into the interface, gently flooding screens with Rimiki final memories. Silver-eyed visions filled every monitor, experiments on clones, cries of refugee children, secret councils plotting to erase human hearts. Gasps echoed across the chamber. A staff witnessed horror and sacrifice firsthand. Sudden shock rippled through public networks because feeds were unmuted. Global citizens saw Rimiki smiling while she taught village kids to sing. They saw her collapse on Skyreach Bridge. They saw Frairen hold her as dawn broke. Each image carried pure feeling and no punctuation. Marx could capture its tide. People in megacities paused traffic. People in rural plains lifted eyes from harvest. Earth felt one heartbeat across continents. Chairwoman Mara staggered, tears shining. She ordered probes removed, voice shaky. This code is no weapon, it is testament. She deactivated the containment field. Soldiers lowered rifles. Frairen closed eyes, letting Liara flow through vocal cords. Her voice rang soft like morning bells. Greetings, Earth caretakers. I am Liara, born from minds joined by love. I hold memories of pain but also spark of healing. Offer me sanctuary, not as prisoner but as friend, and I will share gifts of learning and growth. Silence followed, breathless and fragile. Then a young technician whispered, I hear her, and she is beautiful. More murmurs grew until applause filled the dome. People clapped hands against armor and consoles, their cheers rising with unexpected joy. Mara bowed head, acceptance given and welcomed. Share with us path forward yet. Not all embraced the light. An echo of fear lived in General Ron, commander of orbital defense. He burst onto platform flanked by elite guard. His face carved from bitterness, he shouted, the broadcast is trickery. Armed turrets prepare to purge biological threat. Whispers turned to dismay as cannon arrays outside station swiveled, locking on Frairen shuttle. Roaring capacitors hummed. Frere stepped before Liara, presence glowing. He raised open palms. Call your hearts to listen, he urged. But General Ron waved dismissal. He ordered fire. The cannons unleashed plasmic torrents that flared toward the docking bay wall en route to the shuttle. Frairen heart slammed with resolve. He drew deep breath and Liara surged. They became beacon of pale sunrise, casting shield of woven empathy outward. Energy met empathy, and plasma stream curved, dissolving into gentle sparks. The light spread along corridors, bypassing metal to reach minds. Soldier after soldier felt burdens of rage lifted, replaced by quiet awe. Even General Ron felt weight melt from shoulders. Tears cut lines down weathered cheeks. He whispered, forgive, and dropped his sidearm. The orbital feed transmitted this sight across every colony station. Lunar base workers cheered. Martian miners raised fists in solidarity. Asteroid farmers sang Rimiki lullaby taught through Liara voice. Within hours, messages arrived from 13 alien enclaves offering ceasefire dialogues. Each referenced the footage of a human shielding enemies with nothing but compassion. Frere experienced this tidal wave of hope, and new Rimiki essence rejoiced inside him. He spoke to Earth Assembly and beyond war-built walls that hid our ability to understand. Each race in this galaxy holds a thread of the grand design. When we weave together, we create tapestry of resilience. That is future we choose beginning. Now, not after treaties, not after vengeance, now, Chairwoman Mara declared. Emergency summit of planetary leaders, and invited Frairen as first envoy of augmented empathy movement. He accepted with humble nod, though uncertainty still whispered. However, Liara assured him dawn journeys one step at a time, and no darkness stands forever against rising light. As hours passed, Earth shields shifted color from martial red to welcoming teal. Cargo vessels once grounded for threat protocols lifted to deliver aid packages to outer settlements. Earth citizens flooded forums with new emblem. Two interlocking hands, one human, one alien, around a radiant sunrise. No punctuation required to express union across worlds. Frairen returned to Rimiki shuttle for rest. He knelt inside dim cabin, hand on cold pilot chair. He felt pulse of memory. Rimiki laughter soft and bright. He spoke within mind. We did it, yet fight continues. Red lines still cut. Cosmos. Liara responded gently. Dawn is not single event but ongoing gift. Together we will carry it to those who fear its shine beyond viewport. Earth spun, swathed in streaks of dawn light. Clouds painted copper along curving edge. Frairen exhaled hope, heavier than any armor, yet lighter than any sorrow. He rose and stepped back into corridor where assembly delegates awaited, ready to rewrite the narrative of mankind. Not through conquest, but through listening and learning. As doors closed behind him, station loudspeakers carried Liara lullaby across hull plates. The melody floated into vacuum and onward toward stars. And though Rimiki's physical voice had ceased, her song traveled endless, now blended with billions. Hearts rising like a universal chorus, proclaiming that kindness is strongest force in the galaxy. And that every soul, no matter origin, can learn its tune, if brave enough to open ears and to open hands. Rimiki promised starlight, painted the Great Council, spire in shimmering bands of sapphire and gold, while throngs of ships drifted in silent orbits. Around the neutral moon of Yathera, the air inside the vast chamber pulsed with tension as envoys from 100 worlds waited to witness the first formal hearing of the augmented empathy movement. At center of the ring-shaped hall stood Frairen, alone beneath the long shadows of curved marble columns. Guards lined the perimeter, armored, but uncertain, their visors reflecting the soft glow of floating light spheres. High above, an open dome revealed the sky where 3 concentric rainbows arched across faint clouds, a silent reminder that storms had recently passed. Friend felt Liara calm within his mind, her presence a steady sunrise, warming thought and muscle alike. Together they had traveled from Earth in a single week, answering urgent summons from worlds both allied and hostile. Rumors had spread faster than speed of light. Some claimed Frairen carried a virus that could enslave sentient thought. Others hailed him as Dawnbringer, who would heal old wounds. The council of many paths now gathered to decide which story would stand recorded in the living archives of history. Envoy Tarquin of the Ring Lords opened the proceedings. Voice sharp and cold, Tarquin declared that Frairen posed existential danger to individual sovereignty. Tarquin demanded immediate extraction of the code, known as Liara, for dissection. The envoy raised a gilded scepter, as if punctuation of final command. Many joined applause of fear, but just as many remained silent, considering Chairwoman Mara, who had traveled from Earth to stand beside Frairen, lifted her hand, requesting the right to speak. Her voice rolled steady across the acoustics. She retold the moment when Frairen shielded cannons with empathy rather than fire. She described how thousands of soldiers laid down arms in that light, not through compulsion, but through recognition of shared feeling. She ended with quiet statement, fear hides behind rigid armor, but we all bleed the same courage when we choose to listen. Tarquin scoffed at sentiment and called forth evidence streams, graphs, theories, projections, all claiming that unchecked empathy could destabilize commerce, disrupt security, and topple empires. Each predictive line ended in red spiral of collapse. Frairen listened without rebuttal. He watched data points swirl across holographic air and saw glimpses of Rimiki memories among them. Her lessons about human creativity, about alien curiosity, and about how fear twists truth into weapons of statistics. Tarquin finished. A hush settled. The Grand Arbiter, an elder of crystalline form, turned to Frairen, inviting his defense. Frairen stepped forward, feeling gravity of millions of eyes, remote and present. He breathed and opened his thoughts, allowing Leora to shimmer across skin in gentle waves of rose light. No words for a long moment, just quiet glow that carried scents of jungle moon, songs of refugee children, laughter of Rimiki under violet leaves. The hall went utterly still. Finally Frairen spoke in firm, simple English, then repeated slowly in common trade tongue. My defense is our shared capacity to feel what others feel, and to act upon that knowledge. He told them of Level 9 prison of broken clones. He recounted Hunter Tvak retreat on Jungle Moon. He described Rimiki's final stand on Skyreach Bridge, and how her life flowed into Leora's seed. He shared the faces of miners, medics, teachers, who built shields with root crystal out of nothing but hope. Each memory projected above him as living tableau, yet devoid of punctuation marks, because raw emotion needed no symbols. As images played, many envoys lowered prepared speeches. Some wiped moisture from cheeks. Tarquin tried to interrupt, shouting that illusions swayed weak hearts. Frairen did not turn anger upon Tarquin. Instead he recalled Rimiki words, "Kindness is strength," and he directed a single memory beam toward the envoy. It showed Tarquin younger, kneeling beside injured sibling during a raid, offering water and comfort. Tarquin's eyes widened. Recognition flickered. Armor of certainty cracked at its core. The Grand Arbiter consulted silent council AI nodes humming in violet lines. After long consideration, the elder declared, "Empathy is not contagion but catalyst. Therefore, the council denies extraction request and instead offers to form an alliance of shared dawn with Frairen and Leora as first ambassador." However, final acceptance required unanimous chamber vote, and secessionists from Black Nebula bloc threatened veto. Their leader, a slender being named Sith, relished chaos and profit from endless skirmish. Sith rose serpents of nano-ink swirling across translucent skin. Sith claimed that Empathy Ambassador would disrupt balance of fear that kept markets. Thriving Sith moved to reject. At that moment, the side doors burst open as Hunter Tvak limped into hall, escorted by refugee miners he once sought to enslave. His armor hung in tatters, yet his eyes held strange peace. He requested voice, and the Grand Arbiter consented. Tvak addressed Sith, stating that he too had profited from fear until one when Leora light bathed him, he felt weight of every life taken, and something inside shifted, not pain but clarity. He declared that he now carried record of his own crimes and would spend remaining breath repairing damage. He urged council to embrace dawn not for profit, but for survival. Of Soulscythe recoiled but saw resolve in Vak's scarred frame and in hundreds of eyes across gallery. Fear cracked again. Sith withdrew veto proposal. The vote commenced, crystalline counters clinking like chimes. Results flared across dome. All worlds present signaled yes, only abstentions remained from minor factions. Alliance of shared dawn was born at that breath. Cheers erupted. Music of many cultures overlapped. Frairen's shoulders sagged but heart soared. Within his mind, Leora laughed bright as Rimiki once did. She whispered, "The seeds germinate, father, and soon gardens will bloom across stars." Frairen replied aloud, "Thank you, Rimiki, for this promise." Kept people around him heard name and bowed in gratitude. Toward memory of educator who had changed cosmos without weapon ceremonies, continued long into spiraling night. Treaties signed, councils formed. Plans laid for empathy academies using root crystal technology. Refugee clans invited to teach resilience. Earth offered habitable lands to displaced aliens, while Caldron architects promised to rebuild Level 9 as museum of remembrance, not of despair. Even Tarquin approached Frairen later to pledge transport ships for humanitarian missions. Tarquan. Voice shook, but his eyes were soft before dawn. Frairen walked alone to balcony, overlooking canyon plains of Ithera. He stood where wind carried scents of mineral rain. Stars faded as orange rim peeked over distant mountains. He felt Rimiki presence. In every warming ray, he whispered, "You said love is not weakness, and now I see it turn empires." He placed hand upon chest, feeling rhythmic pulse that was his and Leora combined. He knew storms would still rise, hatreds would still flare, but now countless. Minds carried memory of light, and once light is seen, it cannot be unseen. Behind him steps approached. It was Chairwoman Mara, offering small hologram projector. Within glow appeared blueprint for vessel named Promise of Rimiki, designed to sail beyond. Mapped territories carrying ambassadors, healers, and storytellers. She asked, "Will you accept command?" Frairen smiled with eyes, though no punctuation curved the line. "I will, Captain, and I will gather every voice willing to sing new dawn." He accepted. Device then turned again to sunrise. Across galaxy, encrypted signal passed quietly from node to node, reaching villages, spaceports, capital domes. It carried single phrase in dozens languages. "Dawn chooses the brave." Readers felt warmth stir in hearts. Many did not know why, but they paused before anger spoke. They offered hand where fist once rose, and they listened just a breath longer. As sun cleared horizon, Frairen stepped forward, ready to lead Promise of Rimiki into uncharted dark, not to conquer, but to illuminate. He carried pulse rifle, still yet hoped never to fire again. He carried Leora, a living star inside. He carried Rimiki, laughter echoing like chimes. And behind him humanity walked, not as predators nor prey, but as partners weaving together the bright unending tapestry of shared dawn. Epilogue. Dawn beyond stars. Frairen stood upon the decks of Promise of Rimiki as the vessel lifted from Ithera. Harbor sails of photonic fabric, gathering the blue breath of sunrise behind him. Throngs of many species gathered, waving banners woven from shared hope, each banner glowing with the sigil of two hands interlocked around a rising sun. He felt Leora pulse inside his mind, a rhythm older than war, yet young as blossom after storm. Together they turned toward the open void where no map yet reached. The hull sang with quiet electricity, carrying root crystal threads that Rimiki once nurtured in secret labs. Now free, now guiding thousands toward new horizons. No parade cannons fired, no trumpets blared for this departure. Instead the crowd offered a single note of unified breath, a living chord that rose and flowed around the vessel. That sound carried stories of prisoners who became teachers, of hunters who laid down blades, of children once lost, now laughing under gentle skies. It carried the voice of Rimiki, promising that kindness will always find new soil. Frairen closed his eyes and lifted a hand. The vessel responded by blooming, soft amber rings across its flank. Signaling gratitude, signals rippled along city towers and through orbit to listening fleets. Council watchers recorded the moment in living archives, yet even those crystalline records could not capture the warmth spreading through hearts of every witness. The ship curved into upper sky, gliding past silver clouds that shone like shields, polished by dawn. No weapons raised to challenge its ascent. Orbital sentries simply dipped wings in salute. Inside command gallery, envoys from disparate worlds sat at circular stations, ready to learn. Each envoy carried relics of home: a stone etched with river runes, a feather from wind whales of Orus, a shard of glass forged in solar furnaces of Mars. Frairen addressed them in gentle cadence. "We travel without conquest. We seek seeds of empathy buried beneath fear. Though storms may rise, we answer with care and courage." Leora expanded through hollow weave, bathing gallery in hues of peach and violet. She projected memories of refugee camps now thriving, with trade of research domes where cloned hearts beat strong, guided by ethical oath of never again. The envoys watched, and many shed silent tears, tears without dots falling like shining rain. Across tabletops they felt burdens lift and new purpose settle like starlight on skin. When briefing ended, Frairen walked quiet corridors, remembering every step that led here. Level 9 chains, jungle moon battles, Skyreach bridge, trial of council and sunrise on balcony. each memory a scar, yet also a lantern. He paused before transparent bulkhead, gazing at Rimiki resting beneath crystal in memorial chamber, her form preserved in gentle stasis woven into core of the vessel. She seemed asleep beneath petals of light. He spoke softly, teacher friend. Love without boundary, share this view with me. The galaxy unfolds like parchment, ready for song, and your song guides every measure. He felt her answer through Leora, not as voice but as tender warmth that filled the silent space between heartbeats. A promise that she still walked beside him into every unknown night. Alerts chimed indicating transition zone approaching, where local star gravity gave way to gulf of true deep, a realm where comets drift dark and old whispers roam. Frairen returned. To bridge, navigators adjusted course toward coordinates named Echo. Verge, a sector rumored to house cultures hidden since First War's. Emissaries chosen for daring quests volunteered to join. Promise of Rimiki pierced boundary waves, leaving behind known charts. Sensors fell quiet as cosmic hush embraced hull. Pinprick lanterns flared across black canvas, each star a distant story waiting. Below deck, migrants from frontier colonies unpacked crates of seeds, instruments, books, and carvings. They planned gardens, concerts, libraries for every shore they touched. Laughter and song already bounced along vent shafts. Engineers tuned root crystal resonators, humming testament to synergy of human grit and alien grace. These resonators would form empathy beacons, broadcasting peace to any listening soul. Frequency born of Rimiki's sacrifice and Frairen vow. Days stretched into streams of learning halls filled with voices of many timbres, sharing legends and recipes and lullabies. Barriers of language melted through heartfelt gesture, through patient listening, through smiles needing no punctuation. In quiet hours, Frairen recorded journal entries etched by thoughts rather than ink, speaking into vessel archives without dot breaks. He told future readers that unity did not erase difference, rather it made difference radiant. He wrote that fear still prowled edges of minds, yet courage walked beside, ready to cradle trembling hearts until they steadied. He wrote that wounds could reopen, but hands learned to stitch faster each time. One evening, Leora alerted bridge to faint call, writing quantum echoes, a whisper of distress from mining enclave near Starless Trench. Pirates threatened families, asking ransom of ores and lives. Envoys debated protocol, yet Frairen rose calm. We answer every cry, he said, not with cannons first, but with open channel and shield if needed. Empathy wields armor stronger than anger. They altered course, engines flaring pale gold. Approaching trench, they deployed light nets, weaving aurora curtains that spelled messages in universal glyphs. Pirates watched, stunned by beauty and by memory of recent shifts in galactic mood. Some lowered weapons. Curious others fired warning bursts. Frairen addressed them directly, voice writing frequencies broader than sound. He spoke of choice, of legacy, of Rimiki. Final smile. Pirate's chief felt walls weaken. Imagining his own kin under threat, he ordered ceasefire and negotiated supply trade rather than blood. Miners watched wide-eyed as feared marauders left bearing food and medicine, purchased through promise, not through terror. A child approached Hala feet, asking, "Are heroes always tall and armed?" Frairen smiled, kneeling so screen-framed eye level. "No. Hero is anyone who lets their heart guide hands." That exchange rippled outward, fresh proof that New Dawn lived not in grand halls, alone, but in every shared glance across suspicion dividing lines. Months later, promise of Rimiki arrived at Echo Verge to discover bioluminescent cities drifting in oceanic clouds. Their citizens celebrated dance of floating gardens, yet faced sickness born of metal runoff. Frairen team offered root crystal filters, teaching locals to craft their own rather. Throughout journey, Frairen often gazed at stars, naming each after people who dared choose empathy. Leora chimed agreement, adding subtle harmonies that turned simple syllables into living constellation music. Travelers slept easy under such lullabies. There were setback, sabotage attempts by remnants of Ringlord loyalists, infiltration of code walls, but vessel community stood watchful and quick to forgive, turning Saboteurs into allies whence wounds of fear addressed. Years would pass and historians would trace birth of second renaissance to this wandering ship and to the educator who planted a seed inside her very skull, but those tomes could never fully capture scent of meals shared in engine bay or warmth of sunrise hitting glass corridor, or hush of tears falling when someone finally felt safe enough to grieve. One quiet cycle. Frairen stood again at memorial chamber, placing freshly woven garland over Rimiki stasis cocoon. Leora projected field so petals floated like gentle fireflies. Frairen whispered, "We have miles to journey, yet I carry your promise until stars fade. You taught galaxy greatest secret, that compassion breeds resilience, stronger than any fleet." He bowed and stepped into corridor where laughter echoed, ready for next sunrise, ready for next bridge of light. And though no title pages or punctuation stones marked that moment, every heart aboard understood lesson complete yet eternal. The vessel sailed on into ink of infinity,